What is up guys, Farhan here. Welcome back to another ultimate review. This is the ultimate review of the Harley-Davidson Iron Sportster 883. This bike is kindly loaned out to me by Unique Bike Rental. Huge thanks to them. And also if you're looking to rent for other exotic bikes, from Ducatis to Harleys, BMWs, and even a Super Tenere, you can check out their socials for more details. And for inquiries, do contact them at the contact number in the description below. Alright guys, so let's get started with the review of the Harley-Davidson Iron Sportster 883. Okay, so this bike you can rent it from Unique Bike Rental. They got a whole range of bikes like BMWs, Ducatis, and now they have Harleys also. Also unique bike like the Gilera Fuco and also the Adiva. As you can see, the Iron Sportster, or as with all the Harleys, right, they've definitely have the customization in mind, in which, as you can see, this bike is heavily modified from the exhaust to the front cowl over here, even the color also. I'm not sure if this is stock, but from what I know, the Iron Sportsters, they are usually painted black to distinguish from the base model Sportster 883. Okay lah, so just gonna get this review done anyway lah. Alright, so the ride height is 76 cm. I'm 165, sitting on the bike right now. Oh my gosh, my feet is completely flat-footed on the ground, but not really keen on the riding position though, because it's this, you know, feet forward, arms up high kind of riding position, right? Okay, so 12.5 liter fuel tank, which is pretty small, as you can see, from the peanut shaped fuel tank, as what Harley enthusiasts like to call it, and it gives off a projected consumption of 5.47 liter per 100 kilometer, which is kind of high lah. I mean, it is a class 2, it is a Harley, and it's the kind of fuel consumption that you'd expect lah. Okay, so starting up pretty straightforward. It gives us a key fob or a transponder. Okay, the key here is actually to lock the handlebar, so make sure you're near the bike when you want to start up, or when you're sitting like this with the key fob. Okay, so there's doesn't use a key, so they push the button at the side over here, and when it lights up, I push down the ignition on the handlebar controls. Okay, there we go. There's a lot of quirks on this bike which I'm certainly not used to, and also the riding position. This feet forward, arms stretched out kind of sitting position. Like mirrors, you know, is mounted below the handlebar, is above here, like I'm usually used to on an adventure bike. And basically this bike, when you're riding it, it doesn't like to go slow lah. It likes to be cruising at a high speed. It's like it's very comfortable at 80 and 90. Anything below that, it gets a bit cumbersome and takes a bit of getting used to like, when you are handling the Iron Sportster lah. It's a bike that doesn't really want to turn, I feel, especially at low, slow corners like this. You really need to navigate very carefully at slow speeds, and it really doesn't like to be held back. It's the kind of bike that you'll be riding comfortably above 90 down the highway in the cruise, you know. Even the throttle has been set up to have cruise control kind of setup, you know. It's like when you pull down the throttle, it just stays there, you know, and when you need to slow it down, you push it down. So I really have to keep my hand on the throttle at all times to maintain control of it lah. I have never ever ridden the bike above 4th gear before, for today at least, I don't know, but hopefully we can test it out lah in the highway. But I'm telling you, slow speed situation, traffic lights, this bike is, I wouldn't say it's a good beginner kind of bike. Like, it takes a rider who has ridden like a few bikes before to really handle the Iron Sportster. But I'm not saying that new riders cannot ride it lah. They can, but it's certainly something that they will need to get used to lah. Okay. Okay, so my legs are pretty stretched out right now because of the foot pegs. They're so high. But as with the high-end Sportster and basically all the Harleys, with customization in mind, you can place the foot pegs lower if you want to a more comfortable riding position. Over the years, Harley has unleashed a couple of variations for the Iron Sportster, and the 883 is most notably for being one of the cheaper Harleys to own. And it is, it's a very popular model of Harley here in Singapore. I've seen like the Iron Sportster numerous times on the road. When given the high prices here for motorcycles here in Singapore, if you want a Harley at a so-called affordable price, you can consider the Iron Sportster. And it does come with all of the quirks and features that you'd expect of a Harley-Davidson. It's a cumbersome bike, it's air-cooled, but it's not a carburetor. All of the Iron Sportsters are fuel injected, so no need to tune your carburetor. But during the cold start, when I picked up this bike just now, it does have a bit of trouble starting up lah. So you need to really like rev the bike or choke it in order to maintain the idle.
The Harley-Davidson Iron Sportster 883 was first released in 2010, its signature aesthetic being a blackened out version of the standard 883. As with the Sportster 883 series, it is Harley's most affordable bike that the company offered, leading to its popularity. The Iron 883 Sportster is heavily emphasized on customization, in which Harleys are always known for. A blank canvas to make the Iron 883 reflect the owner's personality. Engine is a 883cc air-cooled Evolution V-twin with electronic sequential port fuel injection and a 5-speed manual transmission.
Alright guys, so let's start off with the riding position. Okay, so sitting on this bike right now is this feet forward, arms stretched out, typical cruiser Harley sitting position that I'm not really fond of, but it's certainly something that you need to get used to lah. With a ride height of 76 cm and 165, and pretty much I'm flat-footed completely on the ground. Even though the weight is like 256 kg, I think no issues for vertically challenged riders. I will say this though, it's a heavy bike, so do be careful when you are like wanting to dismount or what lah. Alright, so let's talk about the design. So as you can see from the general outlook, it's somewhat a typical American style custom cruiser. Very classic look, I must say, okay, from its peanut fuel tank, airbox and fenders. And mostly, as with all the Harleys, the main feature that is highlighted on this bike is the air-cooled 883cc Evolution V-twin, which is obviously the main centerpiece of this bike. Not much body work, as you can see, other than the aftermarket headlight cowling over here. I think it's somewhat stock, okay. Dual exhaust at the sides, and completing the look is a spoke rim finished in black with a tiny chrome on each spoke. This rim is the Iron 883's signature. So up next we come to the handlebar controls. So as you can see over here, it's typical Harley handlebar controls. Nothing much to toggle with, given that there's not much riding tech or riding modes on this bike. Okay, so to the left over here, we got the horn, the high beam, low beam, the left signal indicator, and to the right over here, we got the engine cut off, the starter, and also the right indicator control. Okay, so yeah, pretty much simple and straightforward. The signal indicators is certainly something you need to get used to, given that Harley separated the signal indicators. Otherwise, I think there's no issues with the handlebar controls. Okay, so the gauge cluster is very much simple and straightforward. Okay, it's just the speedometer with a tiny LCD screen that tells you the time. I'm really not sure if you're able to toggle, but it should be able to toggle, given that it should have an odometer. But other than the warning lights, there's nothing much for you to work with. I think the warning lights, there is the engine check light, low fuel indicator, battery indicator, and the key switch. This is what you get when you're riding a very traditional bike. So as I said before, there's not much riding tech on the Harley Iron Sportster AA3. Even ABS is optional, which this bike doesn't have. This bike is fuel injected though, but I think there's a carburetor switch over there. I think you can adjust the timing, but it's still fuel injected, given that all of the Iron Sportsters are basically fuel injected since its inception in 2010. Other than that, yeah, there's really not much for you to toggle with or tinker with. It's basically what you're feeling on the bike right now is just raw power on the Evolution engine. But despite the Spartan nature of the Iron Sportster AA3, it uses a keyless transponder and also uses a belt drive. There's barely no maintenance or upkeep. You don't need to lube it, you don't need to clean it or even wash it even, which is an advantage for the belt drive. And unlike most Harleys, in which the engine is usually measured in cubic inches, this is displayed in cc which is 883 which is obviously in its name, because historically the Sportster has always been targeted to the European market, so the engine capacity is reflected in cc rather than cubic inches. So another quirk is the button placement to start the bike, which is not at the handlebars but over here at the chassis. So just press it, you press the starter button and it starts. Oops. And there's an alarm. So for example, like somebody want to mess with your bike and the key is far away and somebody want to press this button, right? It's gonna sound an alarm that is very loud and irritating. So don't ever mess with a park Harley. So horn check for the Iron Sportster. I have to say it's a nice sounding horn, kind of deep, pretty loud also. Right, so and let's talk price. And Harley-Davidson of Singapore is not consulted with the making of this review. So quick check on Carousel. There's like 3 used listings, okay? 22,800 red color. Another used listing for 19,999 with 10 years COE, black in color. A used one, but the latest generation with keyless technology, 20,900.
Right, so at third gear now, and we are riding at like what, 70 or 80, and the bike really feels as if it's going to stall. So I rather maintain at second gear lah. You know, honestly, I'm afraid. I'm really afraid to ride this bike out. It's really a difficult bike to, I wouldn't say difficult, like given that I've ridden a few Harleys before, it's really a cumbersome bike to handle. It's not something that you can get on and ride on the get-go. It takes a bit of getting used to, I've ridden the Fat Boy, I've ridden the Road Glide, and it somewhat handles like those two, But the Revolution Max Harleys, like the Sportster and the Pan Am, those are different breed of bikes lah. So I would say that this is the quintessential feeling that you're supposed to get when riding a Harley lah. And of course, you're getting all of the thumping and the rumble that you'd expect with a Harley-Davidson. Can really feel the vibrations on your ass right now, your foot, the foot pegs on the handlebars, and this is what Harley riders love, that rumble, between your legs. And speaking of rumble between your legs, because the engine, after riding it for quite a while, it does get kind of hot. But when you're cruising like this, it's okay lah. But only when you are stopping the bike, at a stoplight, waiting or in traffic, you can feel the heat on the Iron Sportster. I mean, it's an air-cooled bike, and with all the power that the Evolution engine releases, you are gonna expect a kind of heat while riding the Iron Sportster. I have to say, when you're negotiating bends or turning with this bike, it doesn't do too well, okay? It's something that I struggle with. I take my own sweet time. I feel that maybe this is a older generation Harley, and that there's none of the riding aids and electronics that most of the 2020 era's Harleys will come with. So definitely when you're riding it, you're feeling the raw power between your legs. It's not dampened out by any riding aids or electronics. It doesn't come with riding aids or electronics even for the Iron Sportster, I think. I think ABS is optional. And this bike doesn't have ABS. But damn, the rotors on this are pretty huge, so stopping power, I reckon, will be damn good lah. Once again, negotiating corners, you really need to lean your buttocks, even on slow gradual bends like this. Honestly speaking, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. It's just a monster of a bike, that you're afraid to unleash it, like even taming it also is a bit cumbersome in personal opinion. So it really takes a rider who has well versed and experienced with other motorcycles, before riding a Sportster, Iron Sportster 883. Okay, so let's floor it a bit. Oh my god. Oh my god, better take it slow. Don't launch like that, because I can feel the bike actually fishtailing a bit, because it doesn't have traction control. So better be careful. Take it slow and throttle gradually. Right, so we're on our way to the expressway, but I'm mostly gonna cut out that part lah. But as I'm riding along Yishun Avenue 2, as you know, there's a lot of traffic lights before we lead to the expressway, right? Oh my god, I tell you, it's a really cumbersome ride. It really doesn't do too well behind cars. I just hope that it's gonna be a better ride when we get to the highway lah. I must say that start-stop traffic, changing gears, pulling in the clutch. The clutch is kind of heavy, by the way, so your left hand is gonna ache for quite some time, after riding in city traffic. And with this giant handlebar in front of me, it's really blocking my view of the speedometer. So I hope I'm not speeding, And also, after riding it for quite a while, the seat feels hard. Maybe because my legs are stretched out because of the foot pegs, they're so far apart. Okay, so negotiating this bend right now. Suspension is pretty bad. Doesn't absorb too much of the road imperfections and road bumps. Could be better. Okay, so we're in the highway now. Woo! Now this is where the Iron Sportster really belongs, In the highway, high speeds. Oh man! Now this is where it belongs. It's a very comfortable bike when you're cruising down the highway above 90. But in city traffic, it's really a cumbersome bike to handle. So when you're riding like long stretches of highway road like this, in Malaysia, in the north-south highway, the Iron Sportster is definitely going to be the bike for you. But once again, no windshield in front of you, although there is this cowling over here. It doesn't deflect the wind too well though, so you can feel the full force of the wind on your legs, on your head, on your arms and your body right now. But given Harley riders are such a different breed of people, right? They really want to feel the wind in their faces, as they're riding this bike while cruising down the highway above 90. But right now, since it's 90, right, I cannot go above 90. I feel as if I'm taming the bike too much right now. If it's telling me to go faster, hey bro, I can go faster. Why are you limiting me to 90, But it gives out a nice growl, as you are throttling up on the Iron Sportster. Yeah, guys, so I'm gonna give you guys my final conclusions on the Harley-Davidson Iron Sportster 883, and we'll see you guys in a bit. Oh my god. What a long day for me. This review has been very difficult for me to record, given that it had been raining on and off the whole day at different locations, and was finally able to get a window, and even then it had been drizzling, as some of you observed in the static review that I did just now. So let me give you guys my final thoughts and conclusions. So it's definitely not a bike for everyone. Let me emphasize this, it's really not a bike for everyone. As you can listen to my numerous complaints while riding this bike, it's mostly for riders who like the cruiser segment and Harley-Davidson. Even for me, I'm sort of a Harley-Davidson fan, but I'm still not fond of the Iron Sportster, given the bad handling and how cumbersome it is to ride in traffic, and its lack of riding electronics, and also certain quirky features that all modern bikes should have, but the Harley Iron Sportster doesn't have it. Like ABS, for example, and the gauge cluster is just a speedometer and a tiny LCD screen that reads the time. And also I feel that its raw power and riding characteristics will only appeal to certain riders that want to feel the raw power between their legs, you know. And also, if you are into customization, the Iron Sportster's ability to easily change out parts and customize really adds that personal touch to the bike, you know. Handling wise, as I've said, it takes a bit of getting used to and adapt. It's not an easy machine to handle. Even as a rider who have ridden many Harleys and other bikes before, I'm really not too fond of the handling of the Iron Sportster. Like, it's a very cumbersome bike, and given the expensive natures of Harleys, it really takes a rider who knows and appreciates its history to really want to own one. Otherwise, he's gonna complain that it's a cumbersome piece of crap. Right. So once again, huge thanks to Unique Bike Rental for loaning me this bike for the review. If you're looking to rent exotic bikes from Ducatis to Harleys to BMW to even a Super Tenere, you can check out their socials for more details. And I've also left their contacts in the description below. You can contact them and inquire on what bikes are available to rent. That's it for the vlog, and we'll see you guys in the next one.